my friends. I'm Patrick Giguere, the Cosmic Alchemist. In today's video is a public service announcement. It's a message that I want to get out there. And actually, a friend of mine made a video about this sort of shared remote view that we've had. And so he did a great job leading the way. And, so I just kind of want to put my own version out there and, just amplify the message. So what this is all about is, for people who are not familiar, remote viewing is, what's considered a component of, a psychic ability or extrasensory perception. And, everybody has extrasensory perception. Everybody has a sixth sense. We actually have multiple senses that are just dormant and that we don't use. And I don't think that, most human beings have really used for thousands of years, but they're there, and anybody can learn to wake them up and to dust them off and start using them. You either need a good teacher, or sometimes people just have sort of spiritual experiences on their own, and these faculties just sort of awaken. So that's what remote viewing is all about. And really an interesting thing is, in the early 1980s, the U.S. Army at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, oddly enough, when I lived there as a very tiny child, they started the first Earth Army, or the first Earth Battalion. So General Albert Stubblebine basically organized this unit of highly intuitive soldiers, so guys with, psychic abilities, and they started learning how to use these. And, one of the things they did was remote viewing. So, with remote viewing, it's a way of viewing a situation or a person or a place or an object or, whatever that's physically in a 3D world. It's very disconnected from, your physical location. So you could, sitting in, New York City, you could be looking at something going on in Sydney, Australia, and it's, quantum physics, the science of quantum physics backs this up, because, everything is one and everything is intertwined. Nothing is really separate energetically. So, modern science is not here yet, but people have known this for thousands of years. And, even the U.S. military has, tried to harness it. And it came out within the last couple of years that the Department of the Navy, so the Navy and Marine Corps together, have put between $3 or $4 million into researching intuition and, basically ESP, because they went through, after action reports from combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there were just numerous reports of sailors and Marines having gut feelings about things and hunches and following them, and they saved their own lives, they saved people's lives, and they were able to, prevent really tragic and disastrous things from happening. This is a thing that that I learned myself. I was I don't think I've mentioned it on this channel, but I was in the Navy. I was a naval intelligence officer, and I had some pretty interesting training experiences, to say the least. Not something you're going to find in my paperwork and my service record. So, you can choose to believe me, or you can choose to not believe me, and, that's cool. But, what you see are not the only things in this world that really exist, and that's the pitfall of an intellectual. They think if something doesn't exist in a book or in public record, then it's just not real. But, from the beginnings of human history, really the most profound and usable and effective insights and information are, passed down orally. They don't get written down. So anyway, let's get back into the story of this. So this past Saturday, November the 23rd, it was Friday night, November the 22nd. And I was on a train. I was on a little 1-hour train ride. And, I sort of spontaneously had one of these, remote views, really. And I started seeing a potential terrorist attack taking place in New York City, in Times Square specifically. And the feeling I got was that this attack was on Black Friday. So, excuse me, so the day after Thanksgiving. And what I saw was I saw like a white work van, like a boxy, very clear to me, a Nissan work van, a white one, coming down 46th or 47th Streets, going east, kind of southeast towards Times Square. Times Square, for people who are not familiar, it's that big Y junction in New York City. It's the junction of Broadway and 7th Avenue, and it's where all the big, the digital, neon billboards are. So I saw this van coming down towards Times Square, and I just saw it basically running people over, and I saw 4 or 5 guys get out of it and with automatic weapons and just start opening fire on the crowds. And that's, Thanksgiving and Black Friday and really the whole holiday season is extremely busy in Times Square. There's a lot of shows and shopping and, all kinds of stuff. A lot of people travel there on the holidays. So, I saw this going on, and I was like, and this was something that I was getting little snippets of it for a few weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks. And Thursday night I couldn't sleep, and it was pretty weird. I didn't really know why, I couldn't sleep. So then I have this vision, if you want to call it that, on Friday. And so while I'm sitting on the train, I sent a message to a friend of mine, someone who, I consider a dear friend, and that is my friend Michael Jaco, who founded Unleashing Intuition. Really interesting guy, really bright guy, really unique. He, Unleashing Intuition is his company. He has, in-person classes, and even really interactive, kind of classes, out in the wilderness, up at Lake Tahoe, and on Lake Tahoe. Really fun stuff. So he does these in-person classes and workshops. He has online classes. He's written a couple of books. Really interesting guy. He has about 35 years of special operations experience, and 20 plus years in the SEALs, and then working as a contractor protecting CIA field officers and State Department diplomats. So a lot of experience on that side, but then also, he's very in touch with his intuition. When he was working in Iraq doing diplomat protection, his intuitions really started developing, in a big way. And he developed a track record working for both State Department and CIA of predicting terrorist attacks and, roadside bombs, where those would be and how to avoid them, suicide bombings, and, well, I mentioned terrorist attacks of all kinds. But these institutions really took a notice to him because he was keeping his team safe, where other people were getting hurt bad and running into these terrorist attacks. So he was the first person I thought of to contact about this. So I sent him a message, and I was talking about this scene that I was seeing in Times Square, which I believe to be on Black Friday. And he got back to me pretty quick, and he said, "Yeah, I see the same thing." And we were seeing the same van, in a group of people, and the van hitting people and people getting out and shooting people, and we bounced this scenario back off of each other and kind of filled in the details that we both saw, to come up with a complete picture. So he saw these guys doing this, and he was seeing, 4, Middle Eastern type guys, and one, like a white guy, like a typical American or like a Westerner. And he saw them making a run for the subway. The impression I had was that, these guys don't make a clean getaway, and they don't shoot themselves either, which usually happens with mass shootings, and there's nobody left to interrogate, and nobody really knows the real motives and the real motivations, and none of the whys to why these things happen can be answered. So and I perceived some details around this. I perceived these potential terrorists as having been programmed, basically brainwashed and kind of mind controlled at Guantanamo Bay, sometime in the last, 17 or 18 years. If you're not familiar with that stuff, with the whole thing with mind control, there were CIA admitted to doing that in 1977. There was the Church Commission, and Senators Church and Senator Edward Kennedy put together this inquiry, and within this inquiry, the CIA admitted to, doing studies where they gave people syphilis. They were giving military members, LSD without them knowing it. And then they were taking people into psychiatric hospitals. The CIA had co-opted different psychiatrists, like Dr. Delgado, Dr. Ewan Cameron. And they were, and Sidney Gottlieb was kind of, he was a CIA officer who was a go-between between them. And so the scientists were, basically, they were doing research on people, and they were brainwashing people. And, this came out in Senate hearings. There were people who, as adults, forgot how to speak and walk after the treatment they'd received from these psychiatrists. So, it's a controversial thing. Most people think, behavior modification and mind control and all this stuff are conspiracy theories, and in the hearings, the CIA said, well, it wasn't very successful, so we stopped doing it. Well, they always play down their capabilities because they don't want people to know what they're capable of. So that's what I saw with these potential terrorists. With that was that they had been brainwashed to basically be, Manchurian candidates, and I saw them being basically handled by a man and a woman, and I saw them, this man and a woman, working out of kind of a, sort of a, almost a safe house. It was basically an office in kind of a crappy, rundown office building in, kind of west side of Manhattan near the Hudson River. The man I saw was, pretty nondescript, but kind of average height, and kind of salt and pepper hair and beard, and kind of out of shape. And, the woman I could see had, she was like in her 50s and, had like dark hair with bangs and, really deep frown lines. And, both of these people, I perceived them as, corrupted intelligence officers of some kind, I don't know if they were, working in some black ops program, some secret compartment within CIA, or if they were contractors, former CIA. Couldn't tell, but they just seemed like, and I've met these, I've met people like this who are, they get kind of corrupted and they're really jaded and bitter, and, they'll do most anything if they, have license to do it, or, if they see a compelling reason. So that's who I saw as, handling these terrorists. And obviously I don't know if this is, if I imagined this or what, but, my friend Michael basically saw the same thing. And interestingly enough, I wake up this morning on Monday the 25th of November, and I see in the New York Times that there was a bomb threat for Times Square. Basically, some guy got onto Reddit and said he was going to bring explosives to Times Square and detonate them. So pretty interesting, at the very least, I picked up, Michael and I picked up on some ideation that somebody was having, out there in the world, out there in the, the quantum matrix, the quantum energy matrix that, connects all of us. So that was pretty interesting. So you can look that up. New York Times, the NYPD is, upping and augmenting the police presence in Times Square, for the holiday season. So that really confirmed things for me that I was, and Michael too, we were perceiving something real. And another interesting thing is that now this bomb threat, this bomb scare has been called in. Things are almost following the pattern of, previous terrorist attacks of a dubious nature. So, back in 1993, when the World Trade Center had its first bombing. The FBI was told about that, and they were just sort of like, yeah, whatever. We'll put our top men on it. And the thing still happened. And in the Boston Marathon bombing, the FBI was at the house of the Tsarnaev brothers. 2-3 days before the Boston bombing. So it's like, either somebody's dropping the ball, or somebody within government, within these agencies with criminal intent, is basically opening a window for these types of attacks to happen. And even before 9/11, there were warnings within the intelligence community that something was going to happen. People in the FBI, people in military intelligence. So the warnings are always there. And on 9/11, there was an air defense exercise running that, strangely enough, Dick Cheney stepped into to run out of Cheyenne Mountain out in Colorado. And you look at the London 7/7 bombings, and those were the London Metropolitan Police were doing drills that morning, and the exercise was all about people on the subway with bombs. So I'm hoping this is nothing. I'm hoping I am imagining this, and nothing's going to happen. But really, this is up to all of us. We have to think positive, and we have to, will this not to happen. It's a big thing in our world right now is, we, the ordinary people have all the power, and it's all in our minds, but we don't know it. We think that either the military or the police or, the great, intellectuals, the university professors and lawyers and politicians and all these people are going to save us and rule the world for us, but it's really us who has all the power. The world, the 3D world, bends to your expectations, and what you expect to happen inevitably happens. So we need to prevent these kinds of things, because we need to have that kind of an awakening. Because in my astrology videos, I keep talking about how from now through February, there's going to be some kind of a big event that's going to wake us up. So this could be a positive event, or it could be totally, it could look very negative and be very tragic and shocking. So I hope that's not going to happen, but as I've been talking about with my astrology, there's a lot going on in there. One thing we have going on here is Jupiter, the planet that protects the Earth, is, actually protects the Earth by sucking in asteroids. So, scientifically this is true. So, Jupiter, our protector, on November 4th entered Mula. So Mula is a nakshatra, so a mini constellation that we use in Vedic astrology that's part of the sign of Sagittarius. So Jupiter entered Mula, and it's staying in Mula through January 4th, 2020. So Mula is the nakshatra of destruction, and it's actually where Ketu was on 9/11. So when major planets are in this nakshatra, this mini constellation, really crazy shit tends to happen. So, and it's this time window. It's from now through January 4th, so through the whole holiday season. So, my prediction of Black Friday, might not be accurate. Could be Thanksgiving, could be Christmas. Really, we're not out of the woods until the ball drops in Times Square, on the transition from, New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, and, nothing has happened. So, we need to stay positive. We need to be less divided, because really it's our self-righteousness and our division that, is causing extremism. It's causing violence, because, extremism is mainstream right now, whether, you're a Democrat, Republican, left, right. Most people, religious people too. Most people in the world right now are, fall into some kind of, well, I shouldn't say most people, but a lot of people right now in the world, especially the most vocal ones, are totally extremist. And they're very self-righteous, and they only see their own point of view and the point of view of their political party or religion or whatever. So, and that's another thing too, is, Islamic terrorism still exists. A lot of really radical left people, like Ilhan Omar types will tell you that, if you talk about Islamic terrorism being real, that you're a racist and you're a xenophobe and all this shit. Well, there are a lot of crazy religious motivated people in the world, and many of them are Islamic. That's, it's not just racism. Ilhan Omar was the person who, when somebody asked her about 9/11, she said some people did some things, so totally minimizing and downplaying that whole event. So Islamic terrorism is still out there, and New York being a very left-wing sanctuary city, just kind of letting whoever in. They're not screening the people coming in. And this is why we have border control. This is why we have a visa application process. This is why we have a legal immigration process. It's so we can keep our country safe and see who's coming in, because there are a lot of people who want to do harm to this country. So, this shit's for real. So, a couple other things, with the astrology, also in Sagittarius, now and through the holiday season, we have Jupiter, Saturn, Ketu, Pluto, and Venus, and then Mercury is going to come in to Sagittarius. We have all these planets in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is a sign of belief systems, religions, philosophies. And, when we have Ketu there, people get very extremist and they get extremely self-righteous. And now that Jupiter is in Sagittarius, the teacher of the cosmos, people aren't only going to be self-righteous, they're going to try to, force their point of view down people's throats. So, when we act this way, bad things happen in the world. So, another thing too is on November 29th, on Black Friday, the Kalasarpa Yoga comes back online. So the Kalasarpa Yoga is when all of the two luminaries and the 5 visible planets are all on one side of the Rahu-Ketu axis. So the 2 luminaries, Sun and Moon, and the 5 visible planets, Mercury, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. So when the 7 visible planets are on one side of the Rahu-Ketu axis, this is when very fated and very destined events happen. And during these times, things can seem very out of control and extremely shocking and just highly emotional and just totally out of left field and really crazy. So we need to use our own minds to prevent this. So keep this in your thoughts and in your prayers. Send love energy to everybody in the world. To New York, to ISIS, to Al Qaeda. If you're a Democrat or Republican, you hate the other party. You need to learn how to love those people, because Barack Obama gave a speech recently, and he was talking about woke culture, within universities, and he said, being as judgmental as possible, and screaming at other people about it is not going to change anything. It just makes things worse. So, his former supporters and everyone else needs to, take this on board. They were wise words. I don't totally agree with him, but about with everything, with every subject, but those were wise words on his part. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll have my December forecast out soon, and I've got a little head cold. The funny thing is right after I had this whole remote view and everything, I just had really intense pressure on the third eye area, and I've had this little head cold, but it's kind of fast tracking. It's on the way out, so I got a little brain fog is my point. So yeah, check out my website, thecosmicalchemist.com, and check out Michael Jaco's stuff. His site is unleashingintuition.com. He has books on Amazon, really cool stuff. So thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you later.